this lady that has joined us on board was the first female champion of the Iditarod, and she is here to share her experience with you. Folks, please welcome Libby Riddles!
Hey, thank you very much. So, you guys just got up here to Alaska. How many people are planning on going to see the sled dogs? At least the puppies on the upper deck tomorrow or something. I mean, that's kind of a funny deal because most of us that are dog mushers, we get into this because we're the kind of people that sort of like being out in the woods with our dogs. But you're also going to find that if you're interested in this, we're very passionate about sharing this with people because for us, dog mushing is way more than a sport. I mean, you got dogs to take care of every day of the year. And so we look at it as a lifestyle. And it's a lifestyle that helps us really be able to relate to how our old timers were up here and how they got around. And sometimes I think if the price of gas keeps going up, we might be getting around like that again in the future. You know, but if you can do the Iditarod, you can handle some cold, you can get in the mind of a wild husky, you can deal with the kind of emergencies that come up every day when you're out there traveling in the woods at 40 below zero. And really the bottom line is, what could you even imagine that's more Alaskan than mushing a team of half-crazy huskies 1,000 miles through the woods in the middle of the winter? It doesn't get more Alaskan than that. And you know, I wasn't born up here, but when you move up here on purpose, most of us aren't exactly looking for a normal life. A lot of people ask me, how did I get up here in the first place and end up with this kind of life? You know, and part of it's my own personality, I mean, the family that I grew up in. My parents were both educators and took us camping and always had pets. And I think really one of the things I'm the most proud of is as a young person, of just deciding to build my life around things that I loved. And I was a natural person for animals, being outdoors. I love arts and music. And all these years later, I'm just so happy with that decision, even though there were some pretty tough times. You know, you had to work for it. But so I decided as a teenager that if I wanted some wilderness, I better get busy because there might not be any if I didn't do it soon. And coming, you know, from northern states, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Washington State, when I thought of wilderness, I thought of going to Alaska. And coming up here is the best thing I could have ever done for myself. People ask, how did you talk your parents into this? Well, I'm the second oldest out of a family of 7. I was like the responsible kid who had to set an example and babysat. I'd had summer jobs since grade school. My parents knew I was pretty stubborn too, and that I was pretty serious about this. So they said, all right, if you get your GED, save $1,000, buy your own plane ticket, we'll think about sending you off to Alaska with our blessings. Well, I finished my last 2 years of high school and saved the money in 3 months. You know, so they reluctantly sent me off. And I'm thinking maybe with the 7 kids, they're thinking, let's get that grocery bill down a little bit. But so coming up here, I was super green, but I was also confident, maybe like I said, coming from family of educators, that I knew how to learn stuff. And that's what gave me the confidence, I think, to come up here. And one of the first things I had to learn up here was how to live very cheaply, Alaska style, because we didn't come up here just for a regular 9-to-5 rent an apartment gig. We wanted adventure, those of us that came up. And there were other kids from my town in St. Cloud, where I came up from, that followed up to Alaska too. So, for example, my first 20 years in Alaska, I never paid more than $25 a month for rent because I'd find some old cabin in the woods, get permission to fix it up, put a wood stove in it, get my Coleman lantern out, be good for business. And then this is how I got started in dogs, because I wasn't having to spend money for rent. It was more work doing this kind of a lifestyle. So I was able to afford to get my first couple of dogs. And then the dogs could help me go get the water from the lodge 3 miles away. And we could go get our firewood with the dogs. And oh my gosh, I broke 2 or 3 sleds before I finally figured out to build a firewood hauler out of 2x6s with the dogs. But doing this for a couple years, I actually got pretty good at what I was doing, to where when a friend talked me into racing, just a little race nobody'd ever heard of, I won it. And so the light bulb goes off. It's like, maybe that's something else I could do with the dogs. But we'll tell you more about my story later on in the show. I know for most people, the big attraction here are these wonderful dogs. And a lot of people get interested in what we're doing with the Iditarod because somebody in the family's had that Malamute or Siberian Husky, and you can kind of start wondering more about the breed. Now you guys are going to see as you travel around, I mean, you might see some teams of purebred Siberians racing, but they're not as competitive as these mixed breed Alaskan Huskies that kind of trace back more to our village Huskies that we mostly use for racing. But you know, purebred or mixed breed, I think these Huskies all are very different from other kinds of dogs. And it's one of the oldest dog breeds. And you know I'm not prejudiced, but I bet if you've ever had one, that this has been the favorite dog of your life. You know, it's hard to find a dog as charismatic and free-spirited and just plain joyful as a Husky. And they'll make a great pet if you know what you're getting into. It's kind of like getting a Jack Russell Terrier, if you can relate to that. Thing is, if you want a dog that's going to listen to you and stick around, don't even ever think about getting a Husky, all right? Stick to the Golden Retrievers and German Shepherd types, because a Husky is a really great dog, but they're about as into doing obedience as your cat is. Siberian Husky voted #1 dog to totally flunk obedience school. And it's not like they're stupid. No, they're just highly opinionated and they believe in their own attitude, you know, and they might love you, but oh gosh, they love to run 20 times more than they love you. They're born to run. They have to run. Unless you're a marathon runner taking this dog jogging with you every day, you're going to have a bored Husky. And that dog is going to tear up your house. And then there are escape artists. I mean, 6 foot over your chain link, dig underneath it. And if they get loose, you may never see that dog again. A lot of them end up in shelters like 60 miles away, and the owners can't even find them anymore. And those are the lucky ones that didn't get hit in traffic, because they don't have a lot of sense about that either. They'll get in trouble chasing deer and livestock. Here in Juneau, we have all these porcupines. I've never seen a Husky turn down the opportunity to go for the stupid porcupine. They just think, oh, this time I'm getting that guy. You know, the only thing worse maybe is chickens and Huskies. If you have a Husky and somebody moves in next to you and they start putting up the chicken coop, take my advice. Go over and introduce yourself and pay in advance for the chickens your Husky's gonna get loose and kill. I mean, they're almost all like this. It's just the wild nature that makes them who they are. You know, but still, they're these amazing dogs. And I'm trying to give you a better appreciation for what it is that we're pulling off by getting 16 of these dogs to get along together and then to be able to travel with them, you know, trusting our lives to them basically out in the wilderness. You know, so we really have to be able to get into the mind of these dogs. And the reason that it works, it's because of the relationship and the good habits that we build over the course of the dog's lifetime. Any good dog trainer, any good kindergarten teacher understands the principles that I'm talking about here. You know, we raise our own dogs from puppies, and from the time that dog's this big until they're running lead in my team, every time I have an interaction with them, I show them that I'm fair, I'm kind, I'm consistent, and most of the time I have a good plan. I'm a good leader. You know, and if you do that throughout the course of the dog's life, especially as closely as we work with these dogs and the kind of, you know, everyday training that we're doing with them, then you can be out there on that dog race running 16 mighty Huskies on some icy river. And you know what? If they don't want to stop, you're not stopping. 16 dogs can pull my truck. But it works because of the training. When I see a trail marker coming up ahead that means we've got to take a right-hand turn off that river and go up through the woods, I'll tell that leader, gee, and 99% of the time, she's going to take that turn as soon as I ask her, because every other time in her life when I've asked her to go that way, there's been the trail, and she knows, yeah, this is how it works. And when she takes it, I'm going to just say thank you, because it's spontaneous, and I appreciate her cooperation. You know, if my lead dog is up there going, ooh, I don't feel like going G today, and they blow me off and they keep going straight past the turn, you know, maybe it's only a matter that I'm going to lose some time as I turn the idiots back around and we get a big tangle getting back on the right trail. But if there's open water ahead on that river and they don't listen to me, now all of a sudden we're in a life and death situation. So this is what I'm saying, it takes a lot of trust. And it's a two-way street too. I mean, there's times when it's storming so hard you can't even hardly see the front end of your dog team, let alone find the trail. And when it's like that, I've got enough sense to turn things over to my leaders to find the trail. That's what they're good at. They can feel that hard pack with their paws. They can sometimes scent the trail. Sometimes I don't even know what the instincts they find the trail with are, but it's pretty amazing, the cooperation and the give and take and the trust that we have with these dogs. So the musher is kind of an interesting part of the whole deal too. I mean, where else in the world is there an event as tough as the Iditarod where you have men and women racing together, and then you're gonna have 18-year-old kids out there racing against the grandmasters in this sport who might be in their 50s or older? And it's actually a sport that favors the older, smart athlete because those people have made all the mistakes. They don't make those mistakes again. They go on to innovate and have good strategies. So there really is a lot to this, and we want to give you a better idea of how the whole thing works with this slideshow that we've got. And this is going to tell you more about the dogs that we use and how the race works. And then we'll tell you more about my story of how I mushed out into this blizzard in 1985. And instead of freezing to death like a lot of people were concerned about, I had done my homework and I spent a tough night out there, but I got a 5-hour lead, beat everybody into Nome that year. And I still sometimes have to pinch myself that it happened. And the stuff that happened afterwards, I had no clue about. I mean, I was getting phone calls from all over the world. I won some award out in New York. But up here in Alaska, one of the things that's kind of stuck from all that is the famous t-shirt we started back in those days between myself and Susan Butcher. But, you know, Alaska, where men are men and women win the Iditarod, right? But, oh gosh. But it's easy to kind of stay humble when your friends up at the finish line in the town of Nome are having this lesser known t-shirt, you know, the one that said, Nome, Alaska, land of fast women and beautiful dogs. Which is why I love the town of Nome. If you guys ever get a chance to get up there, it's my favorite town in the state by far. Okay, keep in mind too, if you guys have any questions about anything you see or anything you want to know about the dogs or the race or anything afterwards, I'm definitely going to have some time for your questions, so keep that in mind and let's go ahead and watch.